Alright, so 2017 F-150 Platinum 3. Actually, this is a 5 liter. This is not an EcoBoost, a 5 liter. Front pinion leaking. Or the rear pinion leaking and front pinion leaking. I apologize. My head's on like 10,000. My mind's on like 10,000 different things. And you got the front one as well. So we're going to go ahead and put new seals and nuts in both of them. I'm going to show you a little bit of an old school way to make sure you put the nut back where it goes by counting the threads. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and mark the drive shaft here, mark the drive shaft here, or mark the front of the case here. Probably enough. Yeah, and then I'm going to do the same thing in the back. I'm going to mark my flange, I'm going to mark my yoke. And then I'm going to pull, these are 12 millimeter 12 point bolts. And these are 10 millimeter straps. There's 3 on each side. I'm going to pull those back, pull this off to the side. You don't need to pull it completely out of the vehicle. Same with this here. I'm going to pull these 4 bolts all the way around, pull it off to the side, strap it over to the leaf spring or something, and then I'll be free to do my work. So what we're looking at is, I'm waiting on the other nut. This is the rear seal, BL3Z4676A. The front seal, 2L1Z3N134AA. I gotta look again to figure out which one this is. I think the nuts might be the same. I'm not entirely sure. This looks like the rear nut. You're not going to use the crush washer because nothing's wrong with the rear end. It's just leaking, so there's no reason to put a new crush washer in there. You're just going to kind of torque back up to where it was and just give it a hair more. And then I got a couple quarts of 75 140 without friction modifier because it has a locking rear differential with a clutch system, so you don't want the friction modifier in it. I know some people say it doesn't matter, but when you have this connector up here that locks the rear diff in, you can unplug that to stop it from locking the rear diff in. If you ever get into a bad situation where your 4-wheel drive goes haywire, you can actually unplug that and it will release that rear locking diff. But anyway, right now we're going to go ahead and get all this cleaned up and then start pulling everything apart. That's what I use to get it off, a 12.12 mil, and then after I get the 4 bolts out of there, they're supposed to be one-time use, but you can actually reuse these. You just got to clean them up, put some more Loctite on them. Now we're gonna go back down there and knock that flange off. So I got part of a ratchet strap that I'm gonna use to hang from the frame. And then you're just gonna tap, like find a thicker spot here. See it starting to separate? See it separated, and now I'm going to hang it off to the side. Okay, got the drive shaft hung off to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and spin this nut off here. I think it's like a 32 or 36 millimeter nut. I'm going to have to find out. I'm not exactly sure. I forget. It's been a while. Now before we go any further and I actually spin that nut off of there, since I can't feel how many thread are sticking out past the nut, I'm actually going to scribe a line. I'm going to try to dig hard. Yeah, I got a nice shiny line on the inside. You can't see it too much. You can a little bit, but right here. So I can check my depth just as a reference gauge when I go back together. So I forgot, this is the one that I got this crappy chrome socket for. It's just a Craftsman 28mm chrome socket. I don't have an impact one, but I've been using this one for years. This is the oddball size one for me, so that's why I even kept this socket. I should be using an impact socket, but I don't really care about this socket, so I'm going to go ahead and use it to get it out of there. I'm going to use one hand to grab the flange, and the other hand I can impact it off, and you'll be fine. It won't turn. A little clarification too, I actually had this wrong. This socket is the, this nut is the front pinion nut, not the rear. I'm currently waiting on the rear to come in. Now I want to show you, I took just a real small screwdriver and I actually marked the inside in between one of the teeth right here. You can see my marks. I marked the pinion and then I marked a little spot right here. So that needs to go back together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a 3-jaw puller to put over this and pop this flange off. You can see I just got a basic big heavy duty 3-jaw puller from I think I got this years ago from like Advanced Auto Parts or AutoZone or something like that, and I swapped all the bolts out and I went to actually bolts and nuts, and I think since then they've upgraded this kit to bolts and nuts, but at the time it was really cheap push pins. But this is how I have it set up, and now I'm going to slowly impact this on there and pull this flange off of the pinion. There's the flange. So now you can either take a seal puller and pull it, use a seal puller and pull it out, or you can just get up behind this flange kind of more from the rearward side and push the flange and peel it forward. Don't peel it in, but peel it forward, and you'll keep your chafe marks and stuff from nicking this up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull that out of there now and put a drain pan underneath it. Okay, so as you can see, I went to seal this way and went forward and pushed it in, instead of some guys, they like to come on an angle and try to pry it behind it and they screw up the flange. So it's out now. I'll make sure I clean all that up, get all that debris and crap off of there, and then I'll go find a seal installer or a really big socket to install that new pinion seal going on there. And then I'll pull this off and go ahead and clean it while I'm here. This is that Slinger. Really good looking fluid, so the fluid or anything, nothing's burned in there. And then we'll go from there. I'm gonna clear off this thrust, or this washer, the Slinger washer, whatever they call it, real quick. This is actually, it's like a bearing spacer Slinger washer. Okay, so there's the new seal installed. I just used a seal driver that we have over on the trans table. You could use a block of wood, you could use a socket. I've seen guys in desperate situations just take their hammer and just tap lightly around the flange and just walk it in real slow. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways to do it. Some people are against the tapping of the flange thing because of all the drivers that we have out now. But if a guy's been in the field for a while and he knows what he's doing and what he's feeling for, he can get away with that fine too. Am I condoning that? I'm not. But have I done it before? Absolutely. Absolutely I have. It works. You know, if you're in a tight spot, you're trying to get a job done, you know what you're doing, you got to do what works to get the customer back their vehicle in a safe, fixed manner. So that's what we're at here. I'm going to go ahead and clean this off some more, and then I'm going to set that new flange up here, and I'm going to use the old nut to drive it on, to suck it all back together, and then I'm going to pull it back off and put a new nut on it. See my little marks in there? Right in there? They're lined back up. Unfortunately, when you put this up here, you are going to have to tap around it. I just do this little ridge right here a little bit to get it seated enough to get the nut started to draw it all back together. My phone just won't adjust today. So essentially this is for the shade tree guy. What I do is I find a hole that's closest to, like I stuck one of my punches in here and I left it up against this portion of the transmission, and I took another drift and put it up top and went underneath here. And then when I got close, I impacted everything on as far as I could until I got to my scribe line. There's a scribe line right there. I scribed a line inside that where I need to be with the collar of this. And then what I did was I made sure I lined these spots back up to where they were before, and that's how I knew I'm pretty much close. I'm in that ballpark, and that's typically good enough. You didn't have problems before, all you had was a leak. So tightening this back up to the same spot and then just a hair more is completely acceptable. Otherwise, if you were putting a crush sleeve and everything in it, you would have to torque it to spec. We're only fixing a seal leak, so this is one of the most universal ways in the field to actually do this. I went ahead and tightened this down to this spec to show you where this nut needs to be, because tomorrow I'm actually going to have to do this again, and I don't have the nut today. But this is to show you, this is how you do the front and the rear the same exact way. And if you have threads to count, you can actually count the threads to make sure that you've got the nut going back in far enough as well. But this is the typical way to do it. I'll do the front maybe later.